In this video, I really am very excited to be driving a Citroen Xsara Picasso, one that has done over 500,000 miles. Is it dreadful? So if you head to Twitter and follow this hashtag #PassThePicasso, you can see the story of this car, and it had one owner. I think he was the second owner. He bought it at 30,000 miles and he sold it just before the 500,000 mile mark. And our friends at Palmdale Motors then took it, they actually caught up with the original owner and they took it over the 500,000 mark. Since then, if you come further around, it has been with other YouTubers. It really has been passed around all over the place. I love this, by the way. Not affiliated with Ronnie Pickering. Some people will know what that's all about. But it's been on the Also Driven channel, but also Sean of that duo has had it on his own channel, Morsels and Motors. So it's been passed around. He's carried out some improvements, quite a lot of cosmetic improvements, and some general tidying up. He actually rebuilt this rear wiper because it's a very specific type of wiper, but he put a fresh rubber in it, so it works really rather nicely. But really, this is the first time we've had a proper look at a Xsara Picasso on the channel, and it is well worth it. They are very clever vehicles. Now, because all those miles were done by one person, we know that not very much has been replaced in this vehicle at all. It is still the original engine, it is still the original gearbox, and yeah, we'll show you the driving experience shortly to show you what to make of that. But what I find impressive is everything seems to work. The electric windows, the electric mirrors, the gearbox itself still feels okay. And you know, all these buttons, everything still functional, which is quite a surprise in an elderly French car. But yeah, it's such a clever place. I really like the driving position because it's that typical MPV style. The seat is quite high from the floor, which means you get plenty of leg room within not a huge external shape. So yeah, it's really good. If I find the key, I can show you the display up here. That's funny, it just told us the rear door was open. It isn't. But yeah, 509, let's turn the fan off. But yeah, 509,837 miles on the clock at the moment. Quite incredible. And if I pop through here, 98 miles until we need to refuel. And I don't know what that one means, but it reckons 56.5 mpg. That's gone up since we got it. That was 55. So it promises to sip the juice. We are still working our way through the first tank of fuel. As you can see, we've already done 279 miles and we're some way off having to refuel again. But when you think about it, oh, buzz buzz, that is a terrifying amount of fuel. We calculated that at 55 mpg, the 509,000 miles was something like 20,000 litres of fuel, which does sound a lot. It turns out to be almost 1/7 of what an Airbus 380 can take at maximum capacity, so perhaps it's not so much at all. But yeah, there's clever storage all around on this vehicle. So we've got one nice little cubby down here, quite useful, little ashtray there, 12-volt power outlet. There's a glove box over on the passenger side, which has got some depth to it and somewhere to put your whiteboard pen, so you can update the bonnet with how many miles you've done. Also got storage under my feet. Indeed, there is a little storage tray down here in which we can find the service history and the can of Easy Start. Because this vehicle did have problems when Also Driven first took it over. There were huge starting issues. That turned out to be, I think it had glow plugs and one injector, and now runs very nicely indeed. But nice deep door pockets as well. You definitely get a bottle of drink in there because that's what the French are like. They like to keep their drinks close to hand. And of course you've got armrests. Lovely armrest on the front seat, so it feels as comfortable as the old C5 we used to have. There's lovely, clever, family-friendly features in the back here as well. We've got picnic tables. These actually still work, and if you look at them, oh, there we go. Beautiful little graphic of a Citroen Xsara Picasso. Usually this framey bit is all that's left. The trays themselves have long since fallen off, so that's really nice. Got pockets here, But very practical rear seats. So we actually get an armrest built in, cup holders as well, just in case these two aren't enough. Oh yeah, and your clipboard, so you can put your documents here and secure them in place. And of course, folding this down also means you can reach in the boot if you've got more drinks stored away. The seats also, as well as folding, it can quite easily be removed as well. And I'm being told to look under the mat, where we will find yet more stories, just like the Berlingo, but actually I think that's a slightly bigger space in the Picasso, so more secret storage. But yeah, plenty of room for me sitting back here. I'd say the seat is perhaps a little upright, but yeah, it's really quite nice a place to sit, although we have still got manual windows which go down quite a long way. Now here's something that hints that things might be getting slightly worn out. It's an electronic release and you have to really lean on it to actually open the tailgate. But there we go, we're in, and you can see it's just a vast space, even with the parcel shelf in place. Oh yeah, it's also got this little folding trolley, which I'm loath to try and open up in case it falls apart. But very nice. You could also get these in Berlingos as well. And there are other smart features here as well. The tailgate, this is currently in the Miss Hubnut setting, but you can actually push the tailgate up a little bit more, so you get a little bit more headroom. That's quite a nice feature, so I don't bang my head on it. And just pop around the side here. There's a little 12-volt power outlet in the rear as well, which means A, the kids can charge their gadgets without having to pester me in the front, and B, you could run a little fridge or something in the boot. But yeah, very practical. And of course, all this, the seats can be removed, the parcel shelf can come out, and then you've got a really useful amount of space. You do lose some because of the slope of the rear, but then they had to differentiate it from a Berlingo somehow, didn't they? And I guess that's how they did it, to try and make it a bit more car-like. It is intriguing that they offered the Xsara Picasso and the Berlingo at the same time. Pretty much the same platform, both very practical, family-orientated vehicles. But it's going to be interesting as we get to know this one to see whether we prefer it to the Berlingo or not. So here is the heart of the beast, a very hard-working 2-litre HDI engine, turbo diesel, producing 90 brake horsepower. It is exactly the same power plant as our Berlingo, which is going to make this quite an interesting test. And it's actually got the cover still in place, which I find very impressive. I know Sean actually refitted that. We've got one for Bella, the Berlingo, but we left it off because they can have a reputation for chafing through pipes. But as it's there, we shall leave it there. It doesn't look a bad engine to work on, even though the engine is a bit under the windscreen. I think the access in many ways actually looks better than on my Berlingo, which makes me a little envious. Now I will admit, the closer you get to this car, the more you can really see those miles. If you come in and have a look at this front bumper, for instance, it just looks like the air has simply blown the black paint off it, and we've got some monstrous chips in the front. But you know, proudly it says here 508,000 miles. We need to update that, but we're going to update it when we get her to 510,000, which we're only a couple of hundred away from at the moment. But generally, I don't think it's in bad shape at all. The sills are probably best just keep your distance. We don't talk about the sills. But in general condition, I mean, the lacquer is pretty good. There's a few places where it's a little scuffed. But really, I think it's doing remarkably well. It's very hard to tell by just looking at it, but it's done 500,000 miles. So I think that's a bit of a credit to Citroen. Now, I don't think this is the highest mileage HDI engine out there, for the simple reason that a lot of them were used in taxis, especially in these slightly larger Citroen Dispatch, Peugeot Expert, were they? And a lot of those have been used as taxis, and I know of several of those that have gone over 700,000 miles. But yeah, for a passenger car, I think it's doing very well indeed. So now we're going to jump into some driving impressions. We've already filmed these. It was actually on our very first long drive in this car. We didn't have time to film a walk around before we set off. So jumping back in time, let's go for a drive. So what is a 500,000 mile Xsara Picasso like to drive? I know a lot of people are probably thinking
that must be utterly miserable. And they would be entirely wrong. It's actually really, really nice. It drives better than a sub 200,000 mile Berlingo, which is a bit depressing given it has the same engine and the underpinnings are pretty much identical. The engine feels further away though, because you've got the windscreen so far away, and that makes it feel a very different thing to drive. It's very weird. It's almost like you're driving from the back seat of a normal car. So very much that one box principle, same as the Renault Espace, but in a slightly smaller form. But yeah, really comfortable, got armrests and everything. So yeah, it's actually lovely to drive. The gear change is a little baggy. The only indications, apart from the fact it says 509,000 miles on the dashboard, the only indications that it might have done big mileage are the slightly baggy gear lever, but I think they were mostly like that for about 5 minutes after new anyway. And the clutch pedal is very stiff. I think it's still a cable clutch on these, so I don't know if it's the cable, if it's the pivot, or if the clutch has just work hardened. I've no idea how old that clutch is. So some of you may be thinking, how on earth has it done so many miles? And I don't know a huge amount, but I think it was the second owner bought the car at 30,000 miles and then took it to pretty much where it is now, and then decided to trade it in because here's a clue. This car was going to fall foul of London's ultra low emission zone. Oh, what's that red warning?
10% battery.
Oh, okay, that's a bit silly. We'll charge up the camera and get back to you.
Sorry folks, let's just take a moment to appreciate the morning. It is absolutely stunning this morning, utterly gorgeous. Oh, hello Berlingo.
Bye bye Berlingo.
Bye bye Berlingo. Oh, he's fast. Yeah, so this falls under the category of MPV, doesn't it?
Well, sort of. This is like mini MPV.
Yes.
Renault claims it started that subcategory with the Renault Scenic, but that does a bit of a disservice to Honda with the Civic Shuttle, Mitsubishi with the Space Wagon, kind of like sub MPVs. But yeah, proved very popular and had a remarkably long production life. I think UK sales began in the year 2000 and production didn't end until 2012. It was sold alongside the C4 Picasso replacement.
I think it was 99 to 2012. It's weird to think that this was still in production up until 2012, isn't it?
Yeah, really
because
is.
It feels very early 2000s, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how different they are inside the later ones. I know the windscreen wipers are very slightly
I think in the beginning there was 2 specs, weren't there?
Yeah.
2 levels of trim and whatnot.
Talking of windscreen wipers.
Oh.
We've got the old clap handers going on, which I think work very well, although there's a bit of a gap here that they don't really clean very well. And of course there is a triangle in the middle of the windscreen, which I'm going to call a triangle of inattention.
Significant dribble of disappointment if there is rain.
Yeah, if you're not moving, you do get a dribble of disappointment. Yes. But otherwise, pretty good. And I know Sean, the previous keeper of this car, spent an entire £4 on these wiper blades, and they work surprisingly well some of the time.
Now, interestingly, Sean, when he got this car, thought he was going to hate it, actually didn't want it, and then fell in love with it.
Yeah, because this is what it eats miles up so well.
It does.
No rev counter, so I can't tell you what revs it's doing at 60, but it feels very relaxing and a lot, well, yeah, very different to how the Berlingo sounds. That's what surprises me most. It is much smoother. Perhaps indicates just how wrong my Berlingo is.
I mean, this was a competitor to the Renault Scenic, wasn't it? And
yeah.
I had a Scenic on a W plate, and it feels considerably smaller than this. The boot space feels considerably smaller on the Scenic. I was so impressed when I saw the boot on this. It's got the same things you would anticipate. It's got the tables and the
switchable seats,
cup holders, many cup holders.
Yeah.
And you can get a fridge for it, but we're not going to talk about that.
No.
Oh gosh, sorry, 2 seconds. That is lovely.
It is lovely.
Lovely. But yeah, I think as a competitor, as a rival, this is better.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's just so smooth to drive. It's just an absolute delight. And because the engine works properly in this, it's so much better than the Berlingo. You can leave it in 5th gear much more of the time. So it does highlight something is definitely wrong with my Berlingo. which is why I was looking forward to this test. So having run out of battery on the main camera, we are experimenting with the phone. But I just wanted to point out, we're driving along the M4 at 61 miles an hour, which is lovely and peaceful. But if I give it a bootful to get past this Golf, as you get past 65, it starts getting a little drony. I don't know if that's coming across on the camera. It's really not actually very pleasant. So I think we'll go back to, we're not in a rush. Cruising at 60-62, which is a lot nicer. So in that regard, I think the Berlingo actually wins. Maybe it's just because there's so much other noise in the Berlingo that you don't hear the engine noise so much. Yeah, the seating position, you sit so high up. So those people craving the SUV driving position, it is here. It was always here in MPVs.
This
so
is you trying to stop people buying SUVs. You don't need one.
You don't need an SUV.
Just buy an early 2000s MPV. You'll be fine. It's
Why
the
do
same.
people buy SUVs? I don't understand it. This is so much more practical. So just to focus on things that don't feel great, the clutch is quite heavy, but mechanically it feels fairly robust until you start slowing down in third gear. Really quite a whiny boy, his third gear. Yeah, that's not ever so ideal. We're getting a bit of a clunk sometimes from what I think is probably the strut top mount on this side as well. But overall, considering the mileage, it's astonishing how well this drives. And if you don't use third gear, it's lovely and quiet. So there we go, we are tweeting our adventures with this car. We are following that hashtag past the Picasso, but obviously we'll be doing more video content as well. We've got this vehicle for I don't really know how long, but we'll definitely be putting it through its paces. I've actually taken the Berlingo off the road so we can 100% use this as kind of the default daily to really see what it's like. And I'm really pleased about that, because we actually came quite close to buying this car just over a year ago, and it just didn't work at the time because of the logistics and everything. And then, yeah, a year later, here it is. And it is fascinating to be experiencing it. So yeah, there will be more to come on this car in future videos. So until then, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget you can head to the Hubnut store and buy lovely merchandise. We sadly haven't got any Picasso merchandise yet, but one day you never know. And we shall see you in a future video. Farewell.